So this week I was thinking about those signs in restaurant bathrooms. I know this is a weird place to start. I was thinking about the signs in restaurant bathrooms that they're required to put up that say employees must wash hands before returning to work. And I know that they're required, right? So you have to put that sign up. But those signs always make me chuckle because when I think about everyone involved in bringing me food, like that feels like the bare minimum. Like that is like yes, I would hope. Like of all the things you're doing back there, please, between bathroom and my food, please wash your hands. And as we're continuing this series in the book of Ruth, what I want to reflect on today is how we see this model in Boaz of not just doing the minimum, okay? We're going to see in Boaz somebody who does not just do the minimum, but goes above and beyond, and in doing so, he is a reflection of a God that we have who does not just do the minimum for us, but always goes above and beyond. So that's what we're going to be exploring today. Now, just to catch everybody up, we're at this passage, this part of the story where Ruth, who is this foreign woman, she's with her mother-in-law, Naomi, and they've immigrated back to Naomi's homeland. They're poor, they don't have anything, and so they're taking part of a local custom that God had instituted where you could go and you could glean from people's fields. And so what had just happened is Ruth was gleaning from a field, and Boaz, who owned the field, noticed her and asked, "Who is that?" And that's where we're picking up today. Now, before we get into any more of the story itself, I want to do a little bit of explaining these Old Testament customs and laws, because it really helps frame what's going on here and what Boaz is doing when we understand what people were required to do with their fields. So there's two laws I want to look at. The first comes from Leviticus. We're told this: "And when you reap the harvest of your land, you shall not reap your field right up to its edge, nor shall you gather the gleanings after your harvest. You shall leave them for the poor and for the sojourner. I am the Lord your God." Okay, so if you have a field, you go and harvest it. He says, don't harvest to the very edges. This is God's command. Rather, leave the kind of the fringes of it. And also, don't gather the gleaning. And the gleaning is basically what's left behind. So if you think if you're kind of walking through with the scythe, you're chopping grain and you're bundling it up, there's going to be stuff you miss. You either missed cutting it down or you cut it and it fell on the floor and you missed it. God had forbid his people from going back a second time to pick that up. Okay? So you make your pass, you don't go to the edges, and don't go pick up the stuff you missed. Why? Because that is for the sojourner and the poor. So for the foreigner who has no land, who has no field to eat from, and for the poor who owns nothing, they can come and they can pick up the gleaning. This is what Ruth is doing here. She's picking up after the harvest what is left. And then this law from Deuteronomy: when you reap your harvest in your field and forget a sheaf in the field, you shall not go back to get it. It shall be for the sojourner, the fatherless, and the widow, that the Lord your God may bless you in all the work of your hands. So this is a third stipulation. So a sheaf is a bundle. So you can imagine if you're getting like wheat. You get like a big bundle of wheat, and you got a bunch of these because it's easier to carry than just like a big loose pile. So what happens if you bundled some up, you stacked it, and like, oh man, I forgot that bundle in that part of the field. Let me go get it. The Lord says, no, leave it. You left it there. Leave that for the sojourner, the fatherless, and the widow. Okay, again, for these vulnerable populations that have little to nothing, you leave it for them. This is what I think is kind of fun. So if you've been doing the Bible in a year with us, great. If not, that's okay too. But you read all these Old Testament laws, and you're like, oh my gosh, and here's what you do with your field and stuff. And then you read stuff, and you're like, oh wait, this is actually like really cool because God has built into his law, built into the way that people live, a way of providing for all people. That everybody who has a field, part of that field is for the care of those in need. And so we see this play out in the book of Ruth. This other story, books later, you're like, oh, this is coming into play. So that's the bare minimum. That's the law that God has instituted. Heads up, not everyone follows this, by the way. But what they're supposed to do is you don't go to the edges, you don't pick up your own gleaning, and if you forget a sheaf, you leave it. That's what you're expected to do. We're going to be reading from chapter 2 here, starting in verse 8. This is when Boaz sees Ruth, asks about her, finds out who she is, and then this is what comes next. All right, reading from us, chapter 2, verse 8. Then Boaz said to Ruth, "Now listen, my daughter, do not go glean in another field or leave this one, but keep close to my young women. Let your eyes be on the field that they are reaping, and go after them. Have I not charged the young men not to touch you? And when you are thirsty, go to the vessels and drink what the young men have drawn. Then she fell on her face, bowing to the ground, and said to him, Why have I found favor in your eyes, that you should take notice of me since I'm a foreigner? But Boaz answered her, All that you have done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband has been fully told to me, and how you left your father and mother in your native land and came to a people that you did not know before. The Lord repay you for what you have done, and a full reward be given to you by the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to take refuge. Then she said, I have found favor in your eyes, my Lord, for you have comforted me and spoken kindly to your servant, though I am not one of your servants. Pause right there. So Boaz sees her and says, don't go to the other fields, right? Because this is a custom for all fields. You could go gleaning all over the place. Stay here. Stay close to the women who are working in my field. I've told my men not to touch you. So this is important for two reasons. One, if you're gleaning and you got too close to the harvesters, they might try and shoo you away, right? Like, hey, not yet. We're still harvesting. Also, if you just think like as a woman, you're going out in the middle of a field by yourself. It's a very vulnerable position, right? You're sometimes dangerous. And so Boaz is saying, my men are going to watch over you. They're going to protect you to make sure nothing happens to you. Then he says, when they draw water, you can drink from it. Okay, so again, this is like manual labor in the heat of the day. So drink water from it. And she asks, like, why have I found favor in your eyes? I'm a foreigner, right? I'm a Moabite. I'm from a different land. I'm poor. I'm a widow. Why do you care, right? So I've heard that all that you've done, and you've come to take refuge under the wings of the Lord, and may he bless you and repay you for what you've done. Okay? Continuing on, this is key. Boaz continues to care for her. We're told this. And at mealtime, Boaz said to her, come here and eat some bread and dip your morsel in the wine. So she sat beside the reapers, and he passed to her roasted grain. And she ate until she was satisfied, and she had some left over. When she rose to glean, Boaz instructed his young men, saying, let her glean, even among the sheaves, and do not reproach her. And also pull out some of the bundles for her and leave it for her to glean, and do not rebuke her. So she gleaned in the field until evening. Then she beat out what she had gleaned, and it was about an ephah of barley. And she took it up and went into the city. Her mother-in-law saw what she had gleaned. She also brought out and gave her what food she had left over after being satisfied. And her mother-in-law said to her, where did you glean today? And where have you worked? Blessed be the man who took notice of you. So she told her mother-in-law with whom she had worked and said, the man's name with whom I work today is Boaz. So this is this moment in the story. So Ruth is out gleaning. Boaz takes notice of her, as Naomi says, who took notice of you? Blessed be this man. She says his name is Boaz. And I want us just to notice all that Boaz does, right? So what's he required to do? He's required to leave a little bit on the edges. He's required to leave the leftovers. And he's required, if he forgets something, to leave it. What does Boaz do, though? It's remarkable, right? Instead, Boaz says, have some water. Join us for lunchtime, right? He's like passing her food. This woman who is poor, coming out of a famine and stuff, and now she's eating till she's full. She's dipping bread in wine. She's dining like no other. And then he tells his workers, hey, let her glean among the sheaves, right? That's the harvested part. That's Boaz's part. That's the part he has every right to, right? You get your sheaves, you harvest that part, you leave the gleaning. He says, let her take from the sheaves too. And then he tells them, like, leave some bundles for her. You can imagine, like, carrying these bundles, and it's like, oops, like, oh, shoot, like, there you go. Like, I mean, this is what Boaz is doing. Like, there's the standard, here's what you have to do, and then Boaz is going above and beyond, and he's taking this woman who's a foreigner and a stranger and a widow, and he's treating her like she's a member of his household. I mean, this woman who's literally hurt, like it's almost like dumpster diving. Like, what did you miss of your food? I'll take the leftovers. And he's like, no, eat until you're full. Oh, I gave you too much. Here's a take-home box. Bring some to your mother-in-law. Like, I mean, this is crazy. How gracious and generous Boaz is being. It's remarkable. And I want to reflect a little bit today as we think about, as God's people called to live in such a manner, what it takes to do this too. What does that look like for us to be the kind of people who don't just say, here's the minimum I can do for other people, but what does it look like to go above and beyond? Now, the first thing to notice is you have to see the need, right? You have to actually see it. And there's a lot of things that get in the way of us seeing the needs in this world. One of which is, right, so classic, we're all so focused on where we need to be, what we need to do. Like our default is, what are my needs? What are my worries? What do I have going on? Right? Just drive on the interstate for a second, right? Like, oh, my exit's 3 lanes over, and you're like, it's just insane, right? People do this all the time, and we do this in life, right? Like, I gotta pick up the kids, and I gotta get to this, and I have this going on, and how am I gonna pay this bill? And we're just bouncing between all of these different things in our life, and in doing so, we're just kind of flying by everybody else, right? Like a car on the interstate just swerving, like, oh, wait, nope, I gotta get to there, and almost causing a crash, right? And so sometimes the problem is that we're so honed in on my needs, what I'm going to, what my goals and my aspirations are, that we're just kind of missing the needs of those around us. Sometimes we don't see it because it's hard to know what to do. It's hard to look at, right? You think of Boaz, and he probably every year had some people gleaning in his field. Again, this is the law. This is the custom. But now he's got this foreign woman, right? He says, right? She knows this is crazy. She's like, I'm a foreigner, don't you know? Right? You think about all the people in our life that are maybe different than us or strange to us or we don't know how to relate to, right? Like, how do I help somebody who's in abject poverty? How do I talk to somebody who's homeless? How do I talk to somebody when all they have is broken English and it just feels like we don't really click? And so sometimes it's just easier to just like leave that for somebody else. Like, I don't know how to fix that problem. Even just personality-wise, we do this all the time. Like it feels like almost every neighborhood has like that one person who everybody just like talks about in a hushed tone, like, oh, Bill's at it again. Like he's grouchy and I'm sorry if you have a loved one named Bill. I'm sorry, I just picked a name. Right, you have that person who's just kind of maybe a jerk to everybody or just a little odd or weird or kind of like something fishy with them, so everyone's just going to kind of avoid them. We'll talk about them in hushed tones. We're not going to deal with them. So there's a lot of reasons why sometimes we just look away. It's easier that way than to look at a need or somebody in need head on and actually step into it. Sometimes it's because we're overwhelmed with need. I mean, this is the problem of the information age. Like, you open your phone, you're like, great, there's 7 billion needs in the world right now. Like, what am I going to do? And we become paralyzed by it, right? We lose so much sleep and stress and anxiety over this problem happening over here and this problem over here, and we don't know what to do, so it's just easier to like, I'm not going to look at any of it. I'm not going to deal with any of it. But the problem is if we don't see the need, whether we're just bouncing around to our stuff, whether it's too hard to look at because somebody's different than us, or we're not sure how to help, or if we're just overwhelmed, that we don't ever actually help the need, right? And so the first step, if we're going to be these kind of people, is we have to be willing and able to seek out the needs around us. So what does this look like? Well, I think it always is helpful to start in kind of spheres. Okay, so what's my closest sphere? What's my immediate vocations and callings that God has given me? My family, those people He's put closest to me. How are people doing? How can I care for those? Okay, great, now let's go out of sphere. How my brothers and sisters in Christ, my neighborhood, my workplace, the people who live near me, and you kind of just keep branching out, my city, and you're just kind of paying attention as I go about life. Are there people that God has put in my sphere, that He's put me in a position that I can care for? Do I see a need? Is somebody struggling? Is somebody hurting? And these can be physical needs, somebody who needs food, needs clothing. It can be emotional needs, somebody who's having a real tough time, needs help, and I could be that friend to listen to them. I could connect them somewhere. It could be spiritual needs, somebody who's lost and wandering, whatever it is, just taking notice of the people around us. Now, sometimes you do this and you realize, like, I still don't have a whole lot of people in my sphere that are in need, right? Sometimes our lives are so insulated that I just kind of exist for my household. I get in the car, I go to my workplace, I get in the car, I go back to my household, I go hang out with my friends, and so everything's kind of nice and neat. And so maybe this means that I need to seek out opportunities. Are there people or organizations that are already boots on the ground doing things that I can come alongside, right? But if we're going to accomplish anything, we got to first see the need. We got to look at it. We got to see the people who are struggling, and not so focused on just bouncing around my life or looking away when it's hard. So if step one is see the need, and then obviously step two is do something about it, right? Try to actually help meet the need, and we can't fix all the problems, but can actually do something, right? And this is what's so difficult. I think as Christians, we know that God is over all things and he's caring for all people, right? But he also has specifically positioned us to be his hands, right? His hands and feet, that I'm actually here to provide and to care. At one point, the Apostle James, in his letter, he's talking about faith without works, and he's talking about, like, if I claim to believe in Jesus, but that doesn't actually do anything, right? Like, maybe I need to reevaluate what I mean by faith. And at one point, he gives this example. He kind of compares it to this. He says, if a brother or sister is poorly clothed and lacking in daily food, and one of you says to them, go in peace, be warmed and filled, without giving them the things needed for the body, what good is that? Right? If you see somebody, like, they need something, hey, I hope you're well. Good luck, right? What good did that do, right? Rather, right, the call is to do something. This is why Jesus, at one point, his disciples come to him and they say, hey, these people are all hungry. Can you go send them away to get some food? And Jesus turns to his disciples and says, you give them something to eat, right? You do that, right? And so, as we think about Boaz and acting, right? Boaz could have said, all right, well, she's going to be fine. Hope you're well, Ruth. Heard about everything that's going on. Good luck, right? But instead, Boaz says, hey, I have stuff to give. Hey, we're having lunch. Come join us, right? Hey, it's hot out. Here's some water. Hey, well, I know you're gleaning, but here's from the sheaves. Here's from the best that I have. And he's going above and beyond. And you think about our lives and seeing needs and then doing something about it, and not just obligatory checking a box so I can feel good about myself, like, yeah, I did something nice, I helped out, right? But being willing to give even when it's uncomfortable, being willing to give of ourselves, our time, our energy, even when it's not always comfortable. Not that we have to make it hard. I want to make it very clear. Like, if you can joyfully serve in some way, do it. Do it with the utmost joy. You don't have to be miserable for it to count, okay? God loves joyful giving. But sometimes we're willing to give as long as it's the leftovers, right? Like, it's the gleaning. Hey, let me take everything I have in life, and then if there's stuff left over, I have a little bit of time, here you go. I have a little bit extra food, here you go. But rather willing to give even when it's uncomfortable. I think of a story when I was back in my seminary training, I was looking at church planting, which is where you help start a new church. And so I met with this guy who had experienced church planting, and we were talking about what that looks like, and he was just sharing stories from his ministry. And he shared this one story that's like burned into my brain. So he had started this church, they planted it, and he was the pastor there, and they had done this outreach where they had a big Christmas dinner. And they invited everybody, but they particularly invited those who did not have a home or who were in poverty, who didn't have anywhere to go for Christmas. And the whole church rallied around this idea that nobody will be alone for Christmas. All right, everyone, we're going to do this dinner. We're going to invite everyone. Nobody's going to be alone for Christmas. It's so good. He said that the day of the event came, and they had a pretty good turnout, and people came, and all of these people came, and they kind of spread out amongst this big gym, and they're all eating. And he said that the congregation, they were very willing to stand there and to scoop food and say Merry Christmas. But when he asked them, hey, can you go sit with people and talk to them, it was uncomfortable, right? They were happy to hand something out, but the idea of going and talking to somebody and being a little vulnerable and not really knowing how to handle that situation, they wouldn't do that. And so he said we'd rallied around this idea that nobody's going to be alone on Christmas. And then what ended up happening is I looked out on a whole room of people eating alone on Christmas. You see, when we think about giving, when we think about helping needs, it's not just obligatory. It's not like, all right, I'm a good Christian, I did something nice, or I'm a good person, I did something nice. But it's seeing people as people. It's seeing people made in God's image who are hurting. And this is where when Jesus calls us to love God with everything we have, and then love others as ourselves, thinking like, that is a person. If that was me, how would I want to be treated, right? Would I want somebody to just be like, well, here's the leftovers I got? Or would I want them to say, no, you actually need something, can I help, right? And so what we see here in Boaz is this man who goes above and beyond. He's not satisfied with the bare minimum, but he's willing to give extravagantly of his resources, yes, but also his time, his energy, And sometimes, sometimes you're like, I just don't know how to help. And that's true. That's why there's a bunch of great people. That's why there's a bunch of great organizations doing good work. You don't have to have all the answers. Like, sometimes all you have to do is show up. Little known fact, I once helped teach a dance class. This was an accident. So what happened was, a few years ago, when I was living in St. Louis, there was this organization that helped give kids experience with the arts, especially kids who came from rough backgrounds, you wouldn't expect. They can't go to a fancy private school, but this was a way of exposing them to the arts. And I had some time, and I was asked to help with this, and I was like, sure, I can do this for a semester or whatever. So I go, and when you go to volunteer, you check which areas of the arts you have experience with. And I'm like, well, photography and videography. Nobody would call me an artist, just so we're clear. Like, nobody's ever heard me sing or seen me draw and is like, look at that guy. Like, no. But I'm like, I'll help wherever. Sounds good. Just put me wherever you need me. And they put me in a dance class. And it was the wildest thing, because it was a bunch of these girls who took this class. They just wanted to do hip-hop. The teacher just wanted to teach ballet. And I just wanted to know how I got in this situation in the first place. Like it was ridiculous. And I know what you're thinking. I'm not going to model any of the DIT class, so don't fear. But I'll tell you this, I'm not going to tell you I changed these kids' lives. I'm not going to tell you that they think of me now. No. But I can tell you this, that my presence and my care was a positive for them. I didn't know a dance move. I looked like an idiot. They got to laugh at me. But they saw somebody who just showed up, right? And for so much of this, it's just taking the time to say, what do I have, right? Boaz had his field. He has to feed his family. He has to feed his employees and pay them, right? He has a lot more field to work with. He could have taken it all for himself, but instead he said, here, there's somebody who is in need. Ruth, I see you, right? And you think about the why behind all of this, right? It's, at the heart of all of this is that we have a God who does not do the bare minimum. He never has. Because you think about this world and you think about all of the needs that are in it, all of the poverty, all of the struggles and the tensions and all of the mess. And the reality is that if I'm being honest, a lot of it, pretty much all of it, stems from the fact that I am a sinner. It stems from the fact that when I think about my field in life, the life that I have, I first and foremost, my default is thinking in terms of me. What do I want out of life? What can I get? What can I do with it? And the reality is that's the case for all of us. It's the case for the world, right? We're all self-focused first, and then if we have leftover, great, I can help somebody else, okay? I think most people can agree. You don't even have to be Christian to agree with, if everybody took Jesus' words and loved God with everything they had and loved others as themselves, this world would be perfect. There'd be nobody hungry tonight. There'd be nobody in need. There'd be nobody struggling to fit into a new home. Things would be amazing. But the problem is that we sin. We don't do that. I don't do that, right? Apart from Jesus, none of us can. We continue to fall back into our old sinful ways and focusing on ourselves. And because of that, it creates a world that's just a mess. And you think about God in the midst of all this. He's looking at a world that he created good, and then we made bad. And you think about, what's the minimum God could do to that world? Well, he let it keep going. I guess that's fine. Maybe the minimum is just letting us know, how do we get in this place? God, this doesn't seem fair. And God tells us, well, it's because people keep sinning. That's maybe the minimum, is that he tells us why. How did we get in this situation? All right, okay, that makes sense. Yeah, that's true. But he doesn't stop at the minimum, right? He goes on, he says, and actually in the midst of this crazy, messed up world, I'm going to give you a place of comfort, a place of refuge. That when you're overwhelmed and consumed by your needs and the needs of others, you can come and you can receive comfort and peace that surpasses all understanding. All right, that's good. But he doesn't stop there. He goes on, he says, and actually I'm going to give you a hope that one day it's not going to be this way. That things are going to get better one day. That in the end, everything's going to be okay. Oh, that's nice. A hope to hold on to in the midst of all of it. And he doesn't stop there. He goes on and he says, and actually it's not just some vague, abstract hope, I hope things get better one day, but a concrete hope. He's I'm going to show you this is true because I'm going to send my son Jesus, who's going to bring about the beginning of it. He's going to die on a cross. He's going to rise. So you know that he's going to come back one day and he's going to complete all things. And this world that's messed up and self-focused will be good. Oh, it's good. And it gets better. He doesn't stop there. He doesn't give the minimum. He keeps going. He keeps giving. He says, and actually, for your part in messing up this whole world, I'm going to forgive you for it. I'm going to restore you. I'm going to redeem you so that perfect world, not only is the world going to be perfect, but in me, you'll be there too. And guess what? You'll finally be perfect. All of those problems in your heart, all of those problems you have that you cause, gone. You'll be righteous. You'll be right. And I'm not just going to stop there. I'm going to give you a preview of it now. So even as we're waiting for that coming, even as we're waiting for the restoration when there's no more need, no more imperfection, I'm going to give you a preview of it now so that in Jesus, our hearts are already being turned and we can already start to love God with all our heart. We can already start to love our neighbors as ourselves. And we're going to see how the Holy Spirit works and changes and forms and shapes us even now. And on top of that, I'm going to keep giving because this isn't something that you have to aspire to. This isn't something like, hey, if you can just get yourself together like 80% of the way, I'll get you like the other 20%, but I'm just going to give it free. You come with nothing, I come with everything. And on top of that, this is all just my free gift. You just receive it in faith. Just repent and believe. And guess what? You don't have to worry about, like, am I believing strong enough? Because it's not going to be based on, like, I'm having faith in my own faith. It's faith in what I'm doing. And so I'm going to give you all these concrete things, promises. Like when people speak a word and a promise in my name, you can hold on to that. When I spoke to you in baptism, you could hold on to that. When I speak to you in the Lord's Supper, in my body and blood, that you have forgiveness, salvation, you can hold on to that. When I speak to you in absolution and say that you're forgiven, you can hold on to it. And we have a God who could have given us the minimum. He could have said, like, yeah, the world's messed up. You guys did it. Great. And he just keeps piling and piling and piling and giving and giving and giving freely. As Martin Luther once said, he richly lavishes us with his grace. I love that phrase. He richly lavishes us. He just gives. Never the bare minimum. And so as we think about being his people, we think about all that we have received, then we look in the world and we say, what are the needs? And I invite us, too, to pray for this, to say, God, open my eyes to them. Because sometimes, again, my head's so down, I'm so turned in, I don't see them, and I'm asking God, open my eyes to them. Help me see what's needed in this world. Help me to see what's needed around me. Help me to see that neighbor that doesn't quite fit in. Help me to see that person who's struggling to fit into a new home, a new place, right? Help me to see that. And then, Lord, help me to meet that need the best I can. I'm not going to fix all the problems. I'm not God. Here's one of the realities, right? So Boaz, he only has so much field, right? He cannot feed all the widows in Israel, right? But he fed the one in front of him. You can't fix all the problems in this world, and if you try, you're just going to overwhelm yourself. But what you can do is you can use the life that God has given you. You can use the time, the energy, the resources to help, to be God's extension of love and care in this world. So you can start looking and saying, what do I have, right? So I have my vocations, I have my needs, I got to take care of my family, I got to take care of all these things, but what else is there in that field of life that I can give? Do I have time to volunteer? At a group like Christ's Body, thank you to everyone who's already been showing up with winter clothing. Sterling was thrown off guard by how much clothes has already shown up. Can I get a group together some Saturday and go hand out food? Can I help teach an English second learning class or help somebody with job acquisition skills, right? Do I have somebody that I know that's maybe lacking right now? Can I just have them over for dinner, right? Just seeing what do I have and what are the needs. If I need to go find them, great. And I'm not just doing the bare minimum. I'm not just trying to check off a box. God never checks off the boxes. He goes above and beyond. He invites us to do the same too. As we close out today, I just want to give us a couple questions to reflect on. Right? Is there someone in my sphere of life in need who I've been overlooking? So you think back in your life and maybe the busyness. Again, we all have different responsibilities. If you're retired, you have more time. If you have kids, you might have more connections in school relationships. I mean, we all have different lives. So is there somebody in my sphere that I've been overlooking, that I've been kind of brushing past, that I've been looking away from maybe because somebody's different, right? God sees the sojourner, the widow, the fatherless. He invites us to as well. Maybe ask, have I been content to do the minimum to help those in need? Are there things in my life or an area where somebody's in need and I just kind of check the box off so I can kind of rest assured I did something, right? You can't do everything, but is there more that I can do? And then how can I start meeting the need of someone this week? Is there some step that I can take Again, maybe it's reaching out to a group to volunteer. Maybe it's touching base with somebody that you know is struggling right now, right? But not putting it off, but seeing. Boaz wastes no time. Who's that woman? Ruth? Ruth, stay here. We'll take care of you. Do you want lunch? Right? Seeing the need, meeting the need. Giving and giving and giving, because we have a God who gives to us. In Jesus' name, amen.